Hi, Filter here. Interesting thing. Yesterday, Sunday, the 11th, I went to a convention in Manahawkin, and I picked up some books. Amongst them, classic Doctor Strange. Oh, Tigra. Basically, if you took Wonder Woman's cheetah and made it into a good guy, well, then I got a hold of this package, Zindra. I haven't opened it yet, but I think it's an entire series, and it would be nice to have. I kind of like getting stuff like this. Sometimes single issues kind of drive you nuts. I also picked up, let's see, this. This I thought was interesting. Overkill. Let's see, what is it? It's Witchblade, Aliens, Darkness, and Predator. Overkill. Something from First Comics from back in the day. Mars. I used to see this back in certain books, and I always wondered what it was about, and never really got a chance to, but then I decided to get it. Cyber Force Hunter Killer. Grabbed this issue. Marvel Fanfare, along with, oh, I like this. Wallywood's Thunder Agents. Another interesting cat that was out there. Taken from us too soon, sadly, thanks to Wortham. Oh, and this is another good one. What If Classics. This has, let's see. What if someone else had become Spider-Man? What if the spider had bitten a radioactive human? It's a good one. What if the world knew Daredevil was blind? What if the Avengers had been formed in the 50s? I remember having that issue way back when. Here's another one you'll find interesting. What if Jane Foster had found the hammer of Thor? What if the Fantastic Four were the original Marvel bullpen? With Flo Steinberg as the Invisible Girl. I love that one. What if Rick Jones had become the Hulk? It's a very interesting story. Let's see. So, like I said, it's very good. One of the funny things when you go to some of these smaller cons, you could get books like this for half, if not a quarter of the price. I remember getting some Red Sonja trade hardcovers for $5. I got like three of them. Let's see. Oh, this one. Phase 1 Phasers. I remember I had like an introductory book. This is from AC Comics. This came out way back in the 80s. And the one weird thing about it, if you notice, his artwork almost looks like, I can't remember the name of the artist. I have to open this up. Uh, oh, I'm sorry. Vic Bridges. His artwork is almost reminiscent of John Burns. In fact, when I saw the original Phase 1 Phasers, I thought it was a John Byrne book until I looked at it, and then I was like, oh, okay, it's not John Byrne. They give you the nice little package for insurance if you're the first 100, the first choice in Quantum and Woody. Let's see. I'm breaking that out of the bag here. um, Here we go. I got some Sigil. The first Marvel Generations. I've been trying to get a hold of these, and let's see, a Fantastic Four issue, surprisingly written by Mark Waid, and artwork by the late Mike Waringo, and just spilled out here when I put it on here. Okay, let's see. Oh, and this one, Incredible Hulk, 168, the first appearance of Harpy, which is basically Betty Brant or Betty Talbot, who got transformed by MODOK to be this monstrosity. Very interesting book. Let's see. Fantastic Four: The Legend, a Magic the Gathering comic. Uh, 4 issues of the 10th. Issues 2, 4, 6, and 7. Right there. I picked all this stuff up. I also picked up Witchblade 18 to 23 by, of course, Michael Turner, uh, a man who sadly we lost a few years back. But the one thing I can say about Michael Turner is this man knew how to live even when he was dying. And to me, that's telling of a person. But while I was there, I couldn't help but notice something which is constant. Oh, forgot. I also picked up this. It's called Sci-Fi's The Hardcore. The writer of the book was there, Ramon Gill, issues 1 and 2. I he had signed it. I don't know if you could see it, but you can probably see it here. Signed it. I like when people sign this stuff because you never know if this stuff becomes like a TV show. Then you could say, "Ha ha! I got the first issue. It's worth $80,000." Sort of like the guy who picked up whatever guy who picked up an issue of The Walking Dead. Oh, the day before I was at a Goodwill store type place, and I picked up an ash can of Bob Hickey's Blood and Roses. I've not seen an ash can in years. And these things are just so great to have. They're really fun. Ethan Van Sciver talks about it on his channel. So, let me grab this. But what I wanted to kind of mention, and this was something I think it's somewhat important, is that when I hear people talk about fans and the like, and how these people, SJW types, like to discount who's there. You know, I was there. I could say out of the entire group of people, um, there were a few people who were black who were there. But I wanted to count something else. I wanted to see how many women were there. And to be honest with you, a total out of all the people that came and went there, I saw maybe, and I'm rounding this up, maybe 15 women out of the 100 or so people who were there. And I'm even women, and women. I mean women. I'm also going to count in those who were like, I guess, or should I say females. I'm also counting in those girls who were there to pick up My Little Pony, or something like that. Now, contrast this to 15, 20 years ago when you go to a place to grab comics in the convention. The only time you saw any girls there is if they were children in tow with their parents in tow. They were in tow with their parents. Or they were the girlfriend, wife, again, in tow with their husbands, boyfriends, as they're going around. Now, this has changed, and I saw, again, at this convention, a few girls single-handedly looking in bins. They weren't looking up My Little Pony. They were looking up some of the more hardcore stuff like that. They were looking up maybe some Superman, some Wonder Womans, maybe some Black Widows, maybe some Incredible Hulks, because they wanted to complete that collection. Now, I'm not sure whether they were there because they wanted to get that one special issue to surprise their boyfriend slash husband. I don't know. It was only $3 to get in, so you never know. But I can tell you right there. And I didn't even count the vendors, the couple of female vendors that happened to be there. One actually, she was the wife of the one guy, and then there was the Star Trek Challenger Club that they were there, and there was couple of women in there, about three women that I remember. Again, they were at the tables and stuff like that. But as for customers and people collecting, I can tell you, it's when you look at something like that, that's a microcosm of bigger conventions. All the conventions I've ever been in, I'll see a few women cosplaying, but it's a majority guy thing. Now, keep in mind, there might be a few people who might have this old old boy school network kind of mindset because you have to understand. And I'm going back to, uh, I'll say back into maybe late '80s, early '90s. When you went to, if you had comic books, girls, women would look at you as a child. In fact, if you saw a girl reading a comic book and maybe they were reading Archie or they were reading the more avant-garde stuff, your Love and Rockets, and some other stuff that was out there at the time, but they weren't reading the superhero genre as we know it. Now that slowly changed, and that's great. But I can tell you one thing: while it was just an alien concept to just see women looking at comics. And the one thing I always notice is that guys would flock immediately towards those girls looking in the bin for whatever issues. It was because it was like, wow, it's a girl who likes comic books and she's not gonna look at me as an idiot. Ooh. That was the mindset. But in this day and age now, we can see young ladies, women, even a few women who are like in their 50s looking up these books. Maybe they want to buy them for their kids, or maybe they're buying them for themselves because, hey, it seems interesting. Again, I'm not holding this against any of them. Now, I'm a little tired here, so bear with me. Now, what I'd like to point out, though, is again, it's a bit of a microcosm of the overall audience. And I gotta say, it's just one of these weird things. So when I see the Heather Antos types talk about who they're trying, and all these other people's trying to white knight. I mean, your audience is what your audience. Your audience is going to be predominantly male. Okay, they're predominantly male. They're predominantly straight, and I'll be honest with you, they're predominantly white. That's just basically the lay of the land. Black people are 13% of the population. Deal with it. Asians are a certain percentage. Hispanics are a certain percentage. You've got what? What is it? Census has said that it's 85% white. I mean, that's the majority of people doing it. However, it's really interesting. You see a lot of black folks at anime conventions. I've never understood why we like anime so much. I guess it's a thing from G-Force and Star Blazers. I don't know. Go figure. Uh, Anywho, uh, like I said, you cater to that audience. You know what you're sending out to them, and I think that's the most important thing. Now, again, I say it's a bit of a microcosm. It's just people enjoying comic books. They love the books. And I know recently they've just canceled a bunch of books that seem to be catering to people who I don't think read comic books. Iceman is catering to something totally different. The female Hawkeye is like, I'm not even sure what they were trying to write with this book. And I can tell you one thing. The weird thing when you look at that Hawkeye, because I had an issue here, and in one of my videos I said, "Hey, Captain Cummings and Dorsey, I understand now why you get pissed." I mean, the artwork in some of these books written by these types, these milkshake crew, is day in the life art. What I mean by that is, if you're doing a book about the day in the life of people facing problems, then the artwork is great for it. But it's not great for superheroics. I mean, one of the things that every kid who has a copy of How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, they emphasize the exaggeration of characters. But when you see Hawkeye with spindly arms, that's just wrong. Okay, it's just wrong on so many levels. However, like I said, one of the things I'm hoping for is something that would again that this whole SJW nonsense is finally reaching an end. A good amount of people are leaving. I'll I'll point out again this whole thing with Heather Antos. The fact that, and I saw this video. I can't remember who was it. Umbrella Guy. I think yeah, it was Umbrella Guy. I thought it was Yellow Flash, but it was Umbrella Guy who showed um, a video Heather Antos being asked the question about what got her into comics, and she pointed to the Batman TV series starring Adam West and Burt Ward. I, and the reporter is standing there with a smile on her face, but I'm pretty sure she's going, That's not an introduction to comics." See, I remember seeing the old Batman TV series. I remember seeing the old Superman TV series with George Reeves, no relation to Chris. And one of the interesting things is, I did not know that they were comic books. What introduced me to comic books was I found an old Shazam comic book uh, drawn by Jose Delbo. I can't remember the writer offhand. I'll have to check that out. I'm going to do some serious research. But that I do remember. And that introduced me to comics. So when somebody says, "What introduced you to comics?" I'll say, me finding that comic book on the street with cover and all, everything was intact. It fell out of somebody's pocket by my reckoning. And because I remember I just found it there walking home from a friend's house, and I picked it up, and from that point in, I was reading comic books, and I could tell you that. Well, I could tell you stories about what I think about that. But when I saw the whole Heather Antos thing, and again, this I said in my last video, this is a woman who has not found her niche. I think she came from some very upper middle class background. She never had any real guidance, and she just thought she'll just bounce from one thing to the other, acting, singing, um, then editing, and now she's going to be doing this editing for gaming. And I don't know what the hell, but she's gone from these things, and I don't think she really has found her niche. I actually hope she finds her niche and dumps this SJW mindset. Okay, just to get that off my chest. Now, again, something else interesting happened last week. I was over at my local comic book stores, within walking distance. Like, yeah, walk out, boom, boom, and I'm there. And what was funny was, one of the not the owner, but another guy was there, an employee, and he's mucking about. Oh, and another thing. Sorry to backtrack on this. When I go into, and this also deals with what Jeremy of the Quartering points out with Magic the Gathering. I'm there at one night because they have their tournaments, and they have the Magic the Gathering tournaments. And as I walked in there, something prompted me to count the number of women that were there. And out of this entire room filled with possibly 60 people, I counted four. Four women. Actually, I think one woman, three teenage girls. And even in the one woman that was there was actually an employee. So, again, this is kind of telling about what these people are aiming for. Now, like I said, I go to my local comic shop to get certain things, certain comics and the like. And on the board, I see some of the books that just aren't selling, and sadly, they're Marvel. And some of the other stuff, they're just in a dollar bin. They just shove them in a dollar bin. And in some cases, some guys, if you go to the right conventions, the cheap conventions, I call it a cheap convention because if it costs you like $3 to get in or $2 to get in, it's a cheap convention, and you generally get some decent deals. Like they'll say, "Hey, for $2, fill this bag and it's yours." It's stuff like that, you know. And you might just want to get that book. It may not be worth much, but you just want to complete the collection of the storyline, and that's it. And even then, the storyline may not even be that good, but you want to do it anyway. But like I said, I really honestly hope that most of this stuff has come to an end. Now, who's running Marvel right now as editor in chief? Things are up in the air. Things are truly up in the air because these folks who've been running it have worn out their welcome. Now, they can't blame it on blackface trolls and the like that. Because if they call me a blackface troll, they could go kiss my ever round, hairy behind. But like I'm trying to put out here, we're getting tired of the pontification that they're trying to throw at us. It wouldn't hurt to give you a good story. It just wouldn't. It would not hurt to give us a good story and show us that that um, you're more than the sum of your parts, if you will. When you have people who make it more of a point to talk about their genitalia and their sexuality, it to me it diminishes so much of a character. This is why something like Iceman, which really could have been a very good issue, a very good series, was destroyed because it seemed to be more, as many people pointed out, like he seemed more like a '90s sitcom gay character. It was less on the heroics and more on his coming out. I'll say this again. I think Cena Grace wanted to write this coming out story he never honestly had. I think he came out of the closet and his parents were like, "Oh, really? Okay. Oh, we were afraid that you wanted to move back in because we just turned your room into a sewing room for your mom." I think that's what happened, and we could tell that his writing, to put it mildly, the woman that wrote She-Hulk probably wants to write for a TV series. Same as Cena Grace. Gabby Rivera probably wants to write that screenplay that gives her an Academy Award where she could get up there, thank everybody, bash conservatives and her thing. I talk about being a proud gay Latina. That's what she wants to do. Heather Antos again needs to find her place in life because she has no clue. But this is how I see it. I think Cena Grace really wants to write for the show Will and Grace. I think that's his thing. He wants to write for that show, and and that's pretty much it. Now, I'm gonna wrap this up, uh, but I just thought I'd get a few things off my chest pertaining to some of the comics I snagged and what I observed at conventions. Now, whatever conventions that you guys might go to, do yourself a favor and kind of be a little more observant as to who's coming in, and then give the comparison. And then you'll understand. If you walk into a place and it's predominantly gay, but then again, if you live in a gay neighborhood and they're all going there and they're snagging up the gay related comic books, then it's understandable. But you're not going to find that many comic books dedicated to that audience. And there's no guarantee that somebody who is gay is going to read comic books. It's always another thing that people seem to forget. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. Like this video, subscribe, and if you leave a comment if you like. And until then, I'm Filter, and I'm out of here.